We talked about this a lot in the past in episodes. Running your business is one thing, selling your business is another. We have a great familiarity with running our business, a certain cadence to it. You kind of know what to expect during the day. Yes, we have curveballs, crises come up, but you know your business and you know how to deal with those. When it comes to selling your company, it's unfamiliar territory. It creates a sense of uneasiness, anxiety. So what do most of us business owners do when we're at that point of thinking of selling or selling our company? We tend to lean heavily into our trusted advisors, which you should. Investment bankers like us, Osage, your wealth management company, make sure you have the nest egg you need after you sell, the right attorney to help you through the transaction, and the most important in many cases is your outside CPA or outside CPA firm. They've been with you from maybe when you started the business, or your parents started the business, or your grandparents started the business. So I thought we'd delve into look behind the curtain with that aspect of that trusted advisor, that CPA. And we're really excited to have with us today from CBIZ, Steve Nicokiris. Yes. I always make that mistake when I pronounce your name, but did I get it right?
You got it right, Nicokiris.
So 100%. it's Steve is managing director at CBIZ. He works exclusively with family closely held businesses. Been around. He has seen it all. Steve, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yes, I've been doing this for 35 plus years. And I really enjoy working with mid-sized companies. I feel a lot of our mid-sized companies, they don't really think, not all of them think of us as that trusted advisor. And you really have to really earn that trust, with your clients. I find I meet with a lot of companies, and sometimes when they're talking about their accountant, they just don't, really lean on them for the kinds of things that, I really love to do. The accounting to me is just kind of the starting point,
right,
in order to build that relationship with the client so that you really could bring more to the table.
We see that because for us, right, we're we have had a couple conversations, couple meetings, maybe a lunch, maybe a dinner with the potential client, and then they are putting their livelihood in our hands to help them. But when we get in there, the first person we ask for, is, can we have a conversation with your accounting firm? Because we need information, right? And it's not just information like the financials, the tax returns. It's like getting a better understanding of the business from their perspective. So when your clients, are in that process of thinking of selling, and they come to you and say, look, you know what? My son or daughter, they don't really want the business. I got to do something. How's that conversation go for you?
I think you really got to step back first, because a lot of times every one of my clients wants to sell their business. Every single one of my clients wants to sell their business. The problem is they don't really know how. Most of them are ignorant, and they don't really understand even what their company's worth.
Right.
And so a lot of times, for me, it's really, really dialing back and trying to build and educate, my clients, way early in the process. We've spoken offline about, when, should you be having these discussions, and, it should be immediately. I think, I'm having discussions with clients, owners at 35 years old about potentially selling their business. And I'm speaking to clients that are 75 years old saying, why the hell haven't you sold your business? Right. But there is that, you need to get those discussions and really educate them a little bit on what is it about and how it's a process, and being ready for the process and trying to train them and their people and how to, really, I think of myself as a supporting actor,
right,
really. And my goal, is to make my client, really look good, and they're the star. If I'm doing that, I think, I'm succeeding, and hopefully they let me do that.
Yeah, we always have that conversation. Like, when is it time to sell your business? It says the day you open it up and start planning to sell, right?
It really is.
And if you're early in the process, are younger, right? You're 10, 20 years, you're thinking long term, is that you can put in the steps, right? The financial controls, the management team, invest with recommendations from your CPA firm. It's like, again, CBIZ is not they're an accounting firm, but they're a consulting firm, advisors.
Right.
So you've expanded your service profile dramatically since the old day. People think of accountants. They think about, okay, they're going to get my
the green
tax.
eye shades guy.
Right, get my eyes, get my taxes done, get my accounting done. But it's so much more today, right? I mean, when they come to you and they look at you and they say, what do I need to do? How should I play? You say, you should, okay, step one is X, right? Step two is Y. How do you kind of approach that conversation? Because people think it's going to cost me so much money. And the answer is no, it's an investment in your future for you can maximize your value on your exit. So when they come to you and they say, why am I doing this? What do I need? I mean, and those conversations are not always difficult because, seeing the forest through the trees sort of thing. How do you kind of approach that with them? Because it's really critical to make that investment.
Yeah, you got to build trust. Like I said, I'm the supporting actor in this movie. Number one, I have to, and it's not for me to blow my horn and how great I am. It's really how, what can I bring to them and show them. I remember speaking to a client years ago, and they were talking about a litigation that they had. They were involved with litigation with one of their big vendors overseas, and they just met me. They just met me, and we just were listening to them, and they were saying how there's no way they could afford to pay this amount, and we said, but wait a minute, did you speak to them and try to let them know about your situation? And they said no. I said, well, they actually they named some of the people. We actually knew some of the people involved,
right?
And we said, we think we could speak to them and maybe help. And they said, what? What do you're an accountant. What are you talking about? You could help. We said, no. If we explain to them that you're just not going to you can't pay them everything you owe them now. You might be able to pay them, but we could show them. He said, yeah, knock yourself out. He let us do it.
Right. And
we actually spoke to them and we negotiated with them literally in weeks, a very, very favorable settlement. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it, and they hired us. They didn't even hire us as their accountants at the time. That's a client today. They're still a client, and they'll be a client until they sell. So those things are really what we love. And the bean counter accountant, I've never been that. I'm insulted when I don't think of myself. I'm not an accountant. I'm really a business advisor, consultant.
Right.
The accounting is really the basis for me to understand the business.
Right. Well, again, to understand the business, the fundamentals of a company, you look at their financials.
Right.
Right. And I mean, that's the measurement of performance.
Right.
And if you're making money and your margins are consistent with industry standards, so to speak, how do we improve on that? But when you look, we have a client right now that we're in the process of selling, and they had some hiccups along the way, and they're still trying to prepare or repair themselves from some hiccups they made. So their margin profile is what I would call significantly below industry standards. And that's the first question. The buyer says, why is you only making 6% EBITDA, right? Or profit, let's just call it cash flow, free cash flow, right? Versus you should be at 20. Why, right? And so they're gonna come back and well, we had issues with our inventory, we had problems, certain things, COVID, we haven't responded from. But that's not the answer, right? How are you going to repair that? And how are you going to fix that, right? So, I mean, those are the consulting end of things where you can tick and tie the numbers, and here we are. But when you look at that and you go in there and you say to your client, "Hey, something's not right here."
Well, we do that. We benchmark all of our clients.
Right.
That's one of the biggest. So the thing that you just mentioned, could not happen to my client, because I would have asked that question months or years ago, and they would have had an answer for the question, really, for you. And that's really part of what we try to do. What I try to do is really get them so they understand, a different look at their business. Try to help, limit blind spots, that they have. And that might be one. Do you realize that your business is not as profitable? Or maybe they're living their life through the business and it is profitable, but you got to just cut through all the crap if they got, different stuff on the books that doesn't belong.
We call those ad backs.
Right. Ad backs,
discretionary
exactly.
expenses.
Very discretionary. And that happens a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, they need to learn that that's not going to continue. And if they really want to sell the business, that's going to have to stop.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned benchmarking, because there are firms out there that are just, just doing the work and here it is, here's my bill, pay it. Okay. They don't really add value there because it's like, okay, you need the financials for your bank. Here they are. Need tax returns for government requirements. Here they are. And they move on to the next client. It sounds like to me is like when you guys look at something and it's like, hey, here's your financials, but something's not right here. We're not comfortable with this. So it sounds like that passion you have for your clients, you really say, hey, we got to have a conversation here.
You got to add value. If we're not adding value, we're not doing our job. It's a very competitive environment. I really love what I do and I love my clients. So I like to say I give my clients my shaving time. I really like to think about them and try to come up with ideas to help them that maybe they wouldn't think that their accountant would ask. And that's one of them, so we really do try to benchmark our clients. We, if their margins are 3 or 4 or 5 points, above or beyond, their industry, we'll try to understand why. Why is that? And a couple of years ago with the old advent of, direct-to-consumer business, cutting out the middleman if you're in the manufacturing, distribution consumer area, all of a sudden, companies are tweaking their margins of selling direct-to-consumer. It's a great way to do business, and a really way, you could do, half the business and make twice as much. And trying to explain that to clients is something that's really, really interesting. But the pandemic helped clients, forced them to really to jump into that.
Right. It's a whole different paradigm shift into like, normalcy to a whole new, okay, what am I going to do here? And
right.
I think the fact where you got to pivot, right? I think it's a great way of putting it. I think, when we were selling companies coming out of the pandemic, and we had a number of clients that pivoted into a new line of business or a different way of doing things to survive or actually even prosper. And we had other clients that just didn't, right?
Right.
So when we're representing the client and the buyer says, what about this? I said, look, it shows to the strength of their management team that they had a once in a century global situation where they were able to manage their way through it back to prosperity, where other clients just, they're still struggling.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, and again, that kind of brings up a little bit of a point here. So you get into like, the devil's in the details at the end of the day. So what you're saying is, benchmarking, adding value, helping clients. So when they put themselves in the best foot forward so they maximize their value, in the sale. But, some people don't, maybe not take all your recommendations or I'll get around to it or let's procrastinate. Right. And then they're selling. Right. And then all of a sudden, the buyer's coming in and they really start to lean on you because again, it's new territory. You now are opening yourself up to outside people looking at what you've done over your life as a business person, and again, the due diligence and things happen. So, how do you work with your clients? Because there's a lot of stress involved with that process, especially on the financial.
A lot. It's very stressful, and it's unknown territory. Like they're only doing this. Most of our clients haven't sold businesses over their life. Most of them. This is it, and they're sitting with, the mother load, and now all of a sudden, they're looking to sell it. And it's not, they've never been through that. They're totally ignorant. So, we're trying to figure out a way to educate them so they understand how to do it. And you could get mesmerized sometimes. And I know I mentioned to this earlier. Sometimes, I was an athlete growing up, and I remember, going to colleges, and you get wooed, by these colleges, and it's like that for business owners. When all of a sudden they put themselves out there, they're meeting with investment bankers and investors, and they're talking. A lot of them, really have passion about their business. And they could talk about it, until kingdom come. But, you got to dial them back. They got to know how to do it. They got to understand what they need to say. And they can't, a lot of times they focus and they lose focus, really, of their business. And I really try to explain to my clients that, you got to be really careful. It's a process.
Right.
You got to control the process. You can't let them control the process. And it's got to work with you and your business. And you're going to have to take time out of the business and do this. And that's something that they really need to learn. It's not easy. It really isn't easy. And it really could cause a problem, where the business takes a little blip And all of a sudden, then the system breaks and the process slows down. So they really need to understand, and really that's when they need to surround themselves with the right team.
Right.
Because a lot of business owners, they get phone calls from people, want to buy the business. I want to buy your business. And they listen and they talk to them.
Right.
They're wasting their time, but they do it. And that's when they talk. They might say things they shouldn't be even saying because they don't know. They need to be trained into, how do they speak to investors?
Yeah. I mean, I think you said controlling the process, and that's how we it's controlling the narrative, but that's how we pitch, frankly. It says, look, this is one of the biggest decisions you make in your life. Maybe outside of getting married, having kids, you're selling your business. It's important for you to control the narrative, control the process on your terms. So you reach the outcome that works for you and your family, right? And you said, people are dialing for dollars. They're out. We've had a whole podcast on this, on fishing, right? Just out there. I said, who are these people? But you're taking your foot off the gas, you're picking up the phone, and all of a sudden you're thinking about big numbers. Right? Oh my God, someone wants to buy my business. But, that's someone that wants to buy your business. Do they have the capabilities? Who are they? Who do they represent? Where are they coming from? There's a million questions need to be answered. And that's why you need to, hire someone like us, bring in your CPA like you and say, look, you know what? You need to really do your due diligence before you get there, and then do it in a way, a cadence, a process, a whole way that works for you. I mean, you probably have clients call you all the time. Hey, someone called me. They want to buy my business.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. And
it happens all the time, unfortunately. These are good companies, and also these people don't know anything about these companies. They know the name of the company, they know the company's been in the industry. They don't know if the company's making money, losing money, how much money they're making, how much money they're losing. It's very, very easy, to get mesmerized and really to get misinformation too. A lot of our clients, they're speaking to their buddies, and their buddies sold their business for $50 million. My company is making $1 million. Can I sell it, for $100 million? They just don't even understand, what it means. And I do really, really try. I don't do what you do. I don't do what you do. And I really do. It's really important for me as that supporting actor to bring in a cast and help a client surround themselves. They get one shot at this. They really got to have the right team behind them, including what you do and what I do, legal and internal. And not all of them do. They don't. They have a lot of weak holes, and we try to help them, fill it so that, they're giving themselves that best shot.
There's no mulligans, right? I mean, no. And the fact is that value is different for different buyers. So when someone comes, hey, we want to buy your business, and they come and say, well, we think it's, and then again, you no longer are controlling the narrative. You've now ceded that to the buyer. So he or she or that firm is now dictating their terms based on how they want the deal to work. Right? They're proprietary investors. They want to do it on their terms. And you're already got one foot, you're like a football analogy, right? You just lost a 10-yard penalty, right? You're now have a longer way to go to get to the finish line, and you're not sure how you're going to get there. And all of a sudden, the buyers control a narrative, and you're stressing out. Is this the right value for my business? And you don't know unless you really test the market. So, business owners, we find that a lot of our calls come in from folks like yourself, attorneys, and just our website and other clients of ours that we sold. Hey, someone approached me. I'm meeting with someone next week. They were approached by 2 different firms, right? And so legacy business, multi-generational. The next generation, unfortunately, or fortunately, has decided not to continue on. And so the 2 partners, the family wants to sell. And what should we be doing, right? And we're going back in a second time to speak with them about how we would approach it and how we would tailor it so they are controlling the narrative on there to make sure they maximize the value. And the value is not always just the price. It's like the right buyer. You're talking multi-generational firm. You got 100 employees, 50 employees, 200 employees that you make sure have a home after you leave. Right? It's important to you. So those type of things. Those conversations that you have ongoing are really something that is really important. And I think that, and you're like the first call.
every business owner is different. Some want to, squeeze out the last penny of the deal.
Right.
Others, like you said, very employee friendly. They want to make sure their employees are covered. They don't want to, and that's really, to the tune of the kind of buyer. And that's really where, we try to help, manage, beforehand, just to give them a level of expectation.
Right.
I'm not a valuation expert, but, I know if a company is making, $1 million, it's not worth 100, and they might think it is. And so we try to first get them listen to what they think, and then, give them a little bit of rationale, and then bring in people, and it's relationships. My business relationship business, your business relationship
Absolutely.
business. They gotta, you gotta find someone that you trust and you believe in and you think could, to sell the baby. It's selling your baby. It's important.
It's a major thing. So Steve, you got 35 years of experience. You've been involved in a lot of successful exits and maybe not so successful exits. I'd love to have you back to talk about some of your experience and some studies and cases that you were involved in, and just kind of share with our audience so they kind of get a feel for, some things that they could be take away from this that can help them when they make their decision. So I'd love to have you come back for another episode if that works for you.
Love it.
Great.
Thanks. See you then.
Well, thanks everybody. Hope you enjoyed our podcast today, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business. If so, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, my name's Keith D, president of Osage Advisors. You can learn more about our firm by visiting our website at osageadvisors.com. Any questions about today's podcast or things about selling your company, please feel free to reach out to me via email at kdee@osageadvisors.com, or shoot me, pick up the phone and give me a call at 860-767-3273, extension 1001. Thanks again for being with us today, and have a great day.